Let's begin. Something we have been discussing in the aftermath of that game on Sunday night that didn't quite go the way that I thought it would. I thought the Steelers would be preparing to play the Titans this week. I was wrong. I admit it. I'll take it. I'll own it. Here's Mike Tomlin from yesterday, meeting with the media and talking about his team's plans at quarterback now that Ben Roethlisberger is, by all appearances, moving on.
Is the organization operating under the assumption that Ben will not be playing next year? And do you think Mason and or Dwayne Haskins is ready to be an everyday starting quarterback in this league?
You know, we are proceeding with that assumption. Both guys, Mason and Dwayne, have had their moments, but they'll have to prove that. Right now, you know, all options are on the table, but those decisions are interrelated based on our global needs and the totality of those global needs. And, you know, I enjoy working with Kevin this time of year because we just, you know, we speak plain English. You know, we have to improve our football team. There's two major ways that you do it. You do it through free agency and you do it through the draft.
Yes, they do. Oh, there was a little bit of a tell there. I wouldn't have expected that. I enjoy working with Kevin this time of year. Really, I enjoy working with Kevin this time of year. Although Kevin Colbert's great, one of the best GMs in football.
Definitely, no doubt.
Understated, doesn't self-promote himself, as we would say, and very well could be pulling the train into the station in Pittsburgh. There was reporting not that long ago that he will retire after the draft, or at least leave the team. You know, plenty of people retire from the Steelers and resurface somewhere else. Bruce Arians retired 10 years ago and became coach of the year as the offensive coordinator and interim coach of the Colts that next season. So beware retirement from Pittsburgh. It could just be a fancy way of pack up your stuff and get out of here. Regardless, the big takeaway for me, he was asked, have Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins shown they can be everyday starters? And the answer to that question was not yes. And we've seen enough from Mason Rudolph to know. We talked about this the other day.
Yeah, right.
It can't be Mason Rudolph. It cannot be Mason Rudolph. Maybe it could be Dwayne Haskins. I don't know. He was never able to supplant Rudolph as the backup this year. It can't be Mason Rudolph. Please tell me you've got a better plan than that. It reminds me of, remember in A Few Good Men when Jack Nicholson says to Tom Cruise, please tell me, you know, these Marines are on trial for their lives. Please tell me their lawyer has a better plan than a phone bill or whatever the line was. But you got to have a better plan than Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph is the phone bill on which Tom Cruise was resting the fate of two Marines.
I don't disagree with you there. I mean, I really don't. I mean, you know, I think our thoughts are very similar as far as when it comes down to Mason Rudolph. Yeah, again, solid backup quarterback. You know, when your quarterback gets banged up, you might need him to start for a game or come in a game and run the offense. Sure. But is he the guy you want running your offense consistently in a 17-game season? I don't see that. I don't. You know, again, I don't see through the time we've seen Mason Rudolph when Big Ben has gotten hurt, I don't see any special attributes about his game, really. He's got some size, certainly. It's a below-average NFL arm when you talk about the power, the strength, the accuracy. Everything that goes along with throwing the football, in my opinion, is a little bit below average. So that's where I can't imagine Pittsburgh getting behind that. And I look at Pittsburgh in so many ways, too. And even though it wasn't easy this year, there's still some pieces on that roster right now that speak and say we can still win now. Like we're not that far off. We've talked about this a little bit. And to me, that's where I envision somebody else, aka someone else other than Mason Rudolph, being there in Pittsburgh. And I think they're going to try to make a play. In my heart of hearts, few people I talk to around the league, I think there is that thought that Pittsburgh might make a play for a major quarterback this year. I know I told you that yesterday. I certainly don't think it's going to be Mason Rudolph. Dwayne Haskins has some potential, Mike. We saw some of that last summer where we went wow a few times, but I think he's still raw, and I don't imagine them wanting to hand the keys to the Ferrari over to him either. So I think at the end of the day, they're going to be looking for a new quarterback there, somebody outside the organization.
First of all, it's not quite a Ferrari at this point.
No, it's not.
Not quite a Ferrari.
No, you're right. Like a Tahoe.
Maybe a Mazda.
Yeah.
Maybe
right,
a Mazda.
Fine, sure, yeah.
Not a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Got a ways to go to juice up the engine. But you're touching on the thing that we talked about earlier this week that Chris Collinsworth was hinting at on Sunday night somewhat knowingly.
Right.
cue the Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin mutual googly eyes gif, and I actually used that as the call to action on Twitter to dial up Peacock and Sirius XM 85 today. That's the guy that I got the impression Collinsworth was talking about on Sunday night. And really, would that not be something if that's what the Steelers do? It doesn't fit with their history. It doesn't fit with their entire concept of team building. But, man, hey, they had a long, lean 20 years between Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger. And, yes, they got to a Super Bowl somehow in 1995. And they were contenders for most of that stretch somehow without a high-end quarterback. They know what it's like to not have a high-end quarterback, and the game has changed. It used to be you didn't have a shot at getting an Aaron Rodgers or any other established, successful quarterback. The quarterback carousel didn't spin the way it does now. You were stuck with who you drafted. And if a guy was available in free agency, it was because he wasn't any good. So, or because somebody was willing to pay a ridiculously obscene sum like the Jets did for Neil O'Donnell when he became available after the 95 season, after he threw 2 interceptions in the Super Bowl to Larry Brown. Wide open Larry Brown. Thought he had already signed with the Cowboys. So it's a different world, and it would be encouraging for Steelers fans if the Steelers pivot to the opportunities that are out there, and maybe it is Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, yes. I doubt it'll be that name. You know, that's not the name that went through my head when I heard Chris Collinsworth talking about that.
Well, I thought we were on the same page. No, it was Aaron Rodgers. Who are you thinking?
No, I was really thinking maybe Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson, just because I'm in the camp, and I thought you were in this camp too. Of like, I just think Rodgers is going to be in Green Bay. I think he realizes.
I think he does need to stay.
Yes.
I think he needs to stay.
I think there's too many things in place right now for me to think he's going to leave that situation and go somewhere else, especially when it looks like he's on the cusp of the second MVP. He's made a few comments about, he bridged the gap between Gutekunst, and there's been more conversation. Mark Murphy, it seems like things have settled down, and like we've always said, he seems to really like his teammates and coaches, and I think at the end of the day, that's where he'll be. Now, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, I could see that happening. I can. Again, I know a lot of people think like Russell Wilson, because he's married to Ciara, is going to be looking for some, big city, whether it be Miami or New York or something like that nature. Pittsburgh might not fit that mold, but I still think Pittsburgh might be the type of organization that catches a guy like Russell Wilson's eye if he does make this power play to get out of Seattle. Again, it's a fan base that's all over the country. Other than the Cowboys, the Pittsburgh Steelers being good at a 425 game or Sunday Night Football, it's big-time ratings because of their national following. So I could see that happening, and I could also see a guy like Mike Tomlin weathering some of the bad press to trade for Deshaun Watson and dealing with that situation and putting it all together and make it work. So those are certainly 2 names that I think about when I think of guys that they could make a play for.
First of all, it's not a Tomlin call. That's one thing that we really don't focus on much with the Steelers. Yep. Art Rooney II is in charge of that team. He's got the ladle deep in the stew, just like John Mara does. But because it works in Pittsburgh for the most part, he doesn't get called out for it. This is a Rooney call, and they went through some dark times with Ben Roethlisberger in 2010. Those have all been forgotten. It's all water under the bridge, but it was as bad as it's ever been between quarterback and city in 2010.
Right.
And you're stepping into this Deshaun Watson mess with 22 active civil lawsuits, with a criminal prosecution that is yet to be resolved. And, the problem is once we finish the coaching carousel, and it's still spinning high speed with none of the 8 vacancies filled, and for all we know, another vacancy or 2 still to come. Once that's done, then the quarterback carousel starts to spin, and we've seen trades done in late January before, not officially done, but done unofficially. You got to start figuring out what you're going to do. You got to start coming up with your plan. You got to start tracking down a quarterback if there's a trade to be had. And on Rodgers,
what happens too. Yeah, go ahead.
But I'm saying on Rodgers, don't leave the NFC North.
No,
don't leave the
too.
NFC North.
Yes.
Don't go to the AFC North. Don't go to the AFC West. Maybe Miles Simmons and I were talking about this yesterday. Maybe the Colts. Maybe if they move on from Carson Wentz. I hadn't thought of that. It was a good idea by Miles because the AFC South, not like the North or the West, but You're set in the NFC North. They're getting 2 new head coaches, and they got Dan Campbell in year 2.
Yeah.
And there's no franchise quarterback. There's no true franchise quarterback there to worry about, at least not yet.
No, you're right. He's as warm and cozy and in a dominant position up there in Green Bay right now. And again, I think they got a lot of young players still on their football team to where you go, it's not like, oh, whoa, down there in the distance, Green Bay's going to fall apart here in the next year or two. That's the good thing. There's an infusion of, middle-aged to younger players to where you can look at Green Bay and go, I think they're going to be here for a little while, let alone the point you make, which I think is very real and always on a quarterback's mind when they're thinking about making a change or contract situations come up. They look at, what's our division? How easy is it to get through? Then I get in the playoffs and everybody thinks better of me because we're in the playoffs and I'm a playoff quarterback. That's certainly got to be a part of the equation. But the other part of this too, Mike, that I think just jumps out to me is like the Steelers, hey, maybe they just kind of sit back and see how this goes. Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Jimmy Garoppolo, for all we know. Quarterbacks like that, maybe the unforeseen ones that we don't see on the radar right now that might be released or traded or let go because of some of the action or movement because of the draft. Maybe there's somebody out there that I'm not thinking of, along the lines of like a Jimmy Garoppolo. You know what I'm saying? Where, there's obviously a guy in the wings there waiting to take over. You hear rumors of like, oh, Derek Carr. They might try to make a play for Russell Wilson to the Las Vegas Raiders. Again, I haven't heard anything substantial to believe that or know anybody that knows anything like that. But, like, if something like that did happen, then there's Derek Carr on the street. Or maybe you can make a trade for him for less than market value because they do want to get some superstar quarterback. So maybe they just got to wait back and see which way the wind blows in this conversation, too. Somebody might fall on their lap. We've seen that happen a lot here the last few years in the NFL.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.